All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Hiba, and I'm a project officer at Frontline, and I'm joined by Catherine as well, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Catherine and I'm a recruitment officer here at Frontline.
Yeah, so today we're going to be telling you a bit more about us as a charity and what we do. But the main reason we're here is to tell you about some student and graduate opportunities with impact that we offer that you might be interested in, including the Frontline program, but including a couple of other ones as well. So just to let you know, there is a Q&A box. We will be giving you around 15 minutes at the end of this webinar to ask questions. So feel free to put them in there as they come to you, and we'll come to them at the end. We can make a start, I think. So in terms of, as I said, what we'll cover today, we're just going to talk about who we are and what we do. And those are the three key opportunities for students and graduates that we're going to be talking to you about. So the first one is the Frontline program, but we're also going to be telling you about Insight events, as well as the campus brand manager role. And then we'll have the Q&A at the very end. So before we move on to talk about our opportunities, just a quick introduction to Frontline in case you haven't heard of us or don't know what we do. So we are a social work charity working to ensure that all children in England have a safe and stable home and that their life chances are not limited by their social or family circumstance. And the way that we do this is through creating social change for children and families by developing excellent social work practice, as well as social work leadership through our programs, such as the Frontline program that we'll be talking about, but also by building a movement of leaders in social work and broader society as part of our fellowship, which is the name of our alumni network, which we'll tell you a little bit about today as well. And in terms of why we exist and why there's a need for social workers to begin with, there are some statistics in front of you on the screen here that you might be aware of or might not be aware of. I know they took me by surprise the first time I saw them. So I'm just going to read through a few of those. Over 700,000 children in England rely on the support of social workers each year. And 6% of care leavers go to university, and that's compared with 43% of all young people. 19% of children in need achieve a C or above at English and Maths GCSE, and that's compared to 63% of all children. 48% of all child protection plans in England have neglect as the primary concern, and 56% of children sentenced in the youth justice system had a social worker. So participants on our Frontline program have supported over 67,000 families. So that's, that's why we exist. We exist to try to ensure that those life chances that those children have are not affected by their circumstance, which, as you can see from the statistics in front of you, definitely are, unfortunately. So it's working to kind of change that and ensure that those children and their families have better life chances and are supported, breaking that cycle of disadvantage. Before we move on to telling you about our opportunities in the program, we're just going to quickly play a video that gives you a bit of a glimpse into what social workers do.
Yes, Ezzy.
This is the work that builds trust.
Well done. Yes.
It's completely different. I don't even know.
This is the work that gives him confidence.
What does that equal, David?
This is the work that forms his perspective.
It's really good, mate.
This is the work that gives them a chance. This is the work that levels the playing field. This is the work that shapes a person. This is the work that makes a difference. This is the work that changes society. This is our work. This is social work.
Great. So hopefully, that gave you a bit of a visual glimpse into what social work can be about. So I'm now going to talk to you about the Frontline programme. So this is our 2-year fully funded route into children and family social work. So graduates and career changers from any degree background can apply to the programme, except those already studying social work, as the aim is to bring new people into the social work profession. And the Frontline programme is an intensive practice-based route into social work. So on the programme, you'll be learning on the job, and it will give you the chance to work directly with children and families and have a positive impact on their lives, pretty much from the get-go of starting in the programme. So to talk a bit more about what the programme exactly involves, so year 1 of the programme starts with the 5-week Summer Institute in mid-July, and this involves intensive training to build your foundations of knowledge and skills required for your local authority placement. And then so in your local authority placement, which you would join in the September, you're there for 2 years on the programme, and we have placements in local authorities sort of all throughout England. And so there in the local authority, you're working with, real families and children, and you have the support of what we call a unit. So a unit is comprised of usually 4 participants on the programme, and you're managed and supported closely by a consultant social worker. So that's an experienced social worker working at that local authority who, you'll constantly be learning and getting supervision from. And a lot of, participants on the programme talk about how, that unit of working with 3 other participants on the programme, you're learning together, you have weekly unit meetings, and that's just such a foundation of the support that you'll get on the Frontline programme. And so alongside this on-the-job training in your local authority, you also attend recall days. So they're dedicated days of learning where that academic element of the programme will continue. And you also have in-unit teaching sessions led by your own practice tutor from Frontline. And so by the end of year 1 of the programme, you'll complete assignments to get there, but that are closely linked to your practice. And then, by the end of year 1, you'll, if everything has gone right, you'll be a newly qualified social worker. So then moving on to year 2 of the programme. So year 2 is what's known as your assessed and supported year in employment. So this means, you're now a qualified social worker. So that means you hold your own caseload, but with ongoing support from Frontline and from, the local authority that you're in. So for example, in your ASYE period, you'll have a protected caseload. So, the size and complexity of your cases will be, minimized and reduced to ensure that you're well supported in that first year. And Additionally, in this year, you're offered independent coaching from Frontline by, a qualified coach who will really support you into that transition into being in this year where you're newly qualified, and to really support you to develop as a leader. And then additionally, in year 2, that academic element of the learning continues. So there's still recall days, although they're less frequent, but you'll be working towards completing a fully funded master's degree in advanced relationship-based social work practice, which you'll complete by the end of year 2. So to talk to you a bit about, some of the key benefits of training on the Frontline programme. So firstly, that quality training and support. So as I said, it's a practice-based route into social work. So in the first year, you do have 200 on the job training days. So, if you're someone who, wants to get stuck straight in and be able to make a difference to children and families straight, as you come out of university, for example, then this could be a program suited for you, as well as, if you're someone who you feel like you learn by doing. Additionally, there is that academic element of the program. So there's 50 days of academic teaching throughout the 2 years. And additionally, as I said, there's that opportunity to get coaching during the second year, which is really a unique opportunity to have something like that so early on in a public sector career. Sorry, I was losing my voice a little bit there. So next, one of the key, benefits of the programme is that it's an opportunity to earn as you learn. So in year 1 of the programme, you'll receive an £18,000 or a £20,000 bursary, and you do get that full amount as it's tax and national insurance exempt. And then in year 2 of the programme, you earn a social worker salary as you're employed by the local authority in year 2. So that can be between 25,000 up to 34,000, depending on your location and the local authority that you're in. And next, key to us at Frontline is developing our participants, our social workers, to be leaders. So, to bring about change with children and families themselves, but also, to lead change in, the social work sector and beyond, to really have an impact, on the system and on society to achieve our mission as a charity of, every child having a safe and stable home. So throughout the programme, leadership development is, a key element of it, and there's lots of opportunity to develop your leadership skills, as well as that coaching in year 2 to really support that. And lastly, once you do, the 2 years on the programme, you're now a working qualified social worker. Your journey with Frontline doesn't have to end after those 2 years. So you do have the opportunity to become part of our movement known as the Fellowship. And I'm going to hand over to Hiba to talk to you a bit more about that now.
Thank you, Catherine. So, as Catherine said, once you complete the Frontline programme, you kind of automatically gain access to our alumni network, which we call the Fellowship. And we have over 1,500 fellows across the country. So it's quite a wide network for you to get in contact with, learn from, collaborate with. And it's all people who have done one of our programs or worked with us in local authorities. So it's people who are on the same wavelength as you, who all want to create social change. So it's a really great opportunity. And our fellowship, we divide kind of into those 3 sections that you see in front of you. So we have what we call the practice network, what we call the innovation lab, and the policy and advocacy hub. And broadly, just what this is referring to is basically there is, you could say, 3 kind of directions that you could go in, although there's obviously more. But if you were to group them together after you're done with the program, you could stay in social work, and that's what most of our fellows do. So most people stay in social work, but then the practice network is focusing on improving and developing your practice as a social worker. You, as part of the fellowship, would get kind of access to networking events and seminars and stuff like that. If you wanted to focus on a specific area of social work that you were particularly interested in, if you wanted to move on to leadership positions within social work, then that's kind of what the fellowship will be supporting you with. Other routes that some of our fellows have taken, some have gone on to want to start their own NGOs or their own projects or initiatives. And then the innovation lab would then support you with that as well. So an example of one of our fellows who has done this that you can see on the screen in front of you, has set up her own charity aimed at empowering vulnerable young women at risk. And then finally, the policy and advocacy hub. So the focus there is on those fellows who want to use the knowledge and the experience that they had from being social workers on the Frontline program to influence local and national policy. And then you've got an example of that as well on there, but that's just 3 of many fellows. As I said, we've got over 1,500, and all of the different routes you can take. But the kind of gist, really, if you were to take one thing from this, is that once you're done with the Frontline program, we don't kind of lose touch with you, and you're not just kind of out on your own at that point. The alumni network, which is self-run and kind of decides what they want to do themselves, is there for you, basically, for that kind of networking opportunities and support opportunities as well. So that's kind of the fellowship in a nutshell. Moving on, I'm just going to tell you a bit about what we look for if you were interested in applying to the Frontline program. So in terms of academic qualifications, we look for a grade C in English and maths, or equivalent if you have an international qualification. We look for a 2-1 or a first undergraduate honors degree in any subject other than social work, because as Catherine said, obviously it's about people who aren't already training to be social workers and new people coming into the profession. We could also accept a 2-2 undergraduate honors degree if there is a level 7 qualification present at the time of application. So that's something like a master's, for example. So if you have both at the point that you're applying, then we would accept a 2-2 as well. Moving on to what the selection process looks like for the program if you wanted to apply. And applications for the Frontline program will open in the autumn, by the way. But the first thing you'd want to do is to register and do an application form, and you do that on our website. And the application form asks you a few competency-based questions, and I'll tell you a bit more about what those competencies are that we look for very shortly. But that's the first thing that you do. You answer a couple of competency-based questions, you submit your application, and at that point you get a link to an online test. And this online test is a combination of situational judgment and verbal reasoning. Those are kind of psychometric test examples, which are used by a lot of employers. So you can, if you haven't heard of them before, you can look them up, find out a bit more about them. We do actually kind of run webinars, like support webinars and stuff like that, once applications are open. So you could also find out a bit more about them through that, and through other opportunities that we'll tell you a little bit about shortly. But essentially, once you've finished your application form, if you pass the online test and the application form, you get invited to a video interview. And that is a one-way interview. So it's not like a kind of a Skype call. It's not that kind of video interview. It is through a specific kind of platform that we use that essentially tells you the interview questions that come up on the screen, and then you record your responses to those questions. And then those are screened at a later time by an assessor. So they are screened by a person, but you don't see a person at the time that you do it. And the reason we do it that way is because we get a huge volume of applications to the Frontline program. So scheduling people to be free when when you're free would basically be impossible. So that's the reason we do it that way. But it does mean you could do it in your own time, at your house. So that's the kind of plus side of that. But the final selection stage after you're done with the application, the online test, and the video interview is the assessment center. And that's half a day. And for this year, we've done them online through a platform called TopScore. In terms of what the assessment center entails, you take part in a range of activities that test different competencies, again, that I'll tell you about shortly. But you're assessed by different assessors throughout the day, and it gives you a bit of a glimpse, some of the activities, into like what the social work profession is like. So it's also a chance for you to decide, as well as for like the assessor, if this is really for you. And it includes activities such as an interview with a social worker, a role play, a conversation with a care experienced person, a group activity, and a written exercise. And then finally, if you pass the assessment center, the final selection stage, you get made a conditional offer at that point, and then we just do the kind of pre-program checks. So that's the selection process in a nutshell. And then, as I kept saying, the competencies that we look for, those are the competencies that we look for. Our selection process is very much competency-based. So because we are looking to get people who are not already social workers, who don't have social work experience, who don't even have social work adjacent experience into the profession, we don't look for any specific knowledge or any specific experience that you have had. Instead, what we look for is competencies, and competencies they tend to be really transferable from other experiences you've had in life. And as you can see, the ones that you can see in front of you are quite generic. You might have had them through if you have done like group work, through your academic work, through extracurriculars, any jobs you might have held, you will have gained those competencies. And I won't go into like loads and loads of detail about what all of them mean, but broadly, we look for your motivations. Why do you want to join the program? Why do you want to be a social worker? Why Frontline? We look for your self-awareness, so your knowledge of your own strengths and your own development areas, but also your knowledge of kind of yourself, your ability to reflect on your life, and if you have any kind of prejudices or you act in a certain way, what impact that has on other people, so that kind of thing. And we look for your resilience, so to what extent can you navigate challenging situations and have kind of self-care strategies and that kind of thing. And those three we group under commitment to children and families. And then obviously social work is very much a profession where you will be working with people. It's very much like a relationship-based profession. So we look for your effective communication and your ability to empathize and build relationships with people from different backgrounds, different ages, that kind of thing. And just to note, under effective communication, that can mean a range of things. So it can mean written communication, it can mean verbal communication, It can even mean kind of nonverbal communication, so your cues through your body language and stuff like that. So we look for a range of all of those different things through the different selection stages. And then finally, we're looking for leading with sound judgment. Under that, the competencies we look for are analysis and adaptability. And essentially what that just means is your ability to use, let's say, kind of data and information, say about kind of social work cases, to come to sound decisions. So to what extent do the decisions and the suggestions that you make show kind of sound reasoning? And adaptability just means kind of being adaptable in those decisions that you make, and adaptable in the way that you analyze situations and data. So not being inflexible as to stick to your initial analysis and then, not change your mind if you have new information or someone else's opinion. And then finally, leadership, which is a really, really key one for Frontline. Catherine was mentioning, throughout the program, obviously we help you develop your leadership as well. But just the one thing I want to say about leadership here is when we say leadership at Frontline, we have maybe a different definition of what leadership looks like than kind of more traditional meanings of leadership. So we're not looking for hierarchies. We're not looking for, if you've had management experience or your ability to tell other people what to do. It's more leadership that comes through being able to inspire others, influence others, and build on strong relationships that you have with others. And the reason that is because in social work, going into if you're working with a family, going in and trying to put in place interventions and tell people what to do, that's not what you should be doing, and that's not going to work. So our social workers, build really strong relationships with people, and then inspire them and help them to make changes for themselves. And that's the kind of leadership that we're looking for. So just bear that in mind when thinking about leadership for Frontline, if you do ever decide to apply. And that's our competencies in a nutshell. I'm going to hand back over to Catherine now to tell you about insight events.
Thanks, Hiba. Yes, so if the Frontline programme is sounding like something you could be interested in, maybe you want to find out even more about it, then I would really recommend that you consider applying to one of our insight events taking place this summer ahead of the applications opening for the Frontline programme in the autumn time. So our insight events are really designed to give you the chance to learn more about, a career in social work and, help you to decide if it's the right path for you. And the events also aim to develop your knowledge and confidence to, be able to apply and succeed in your application to the Frontline programme, should you choose that that's what you want to go on to do. So to tell you a bit more about the events, so they're a 3-hour interactive virtual event, and they're delivered on different dates throughout May and July. And at the event, as I said, you'll learn more about the Frontline programme, as well as what it means to be a social worker. We appreciate that a lot of people may have never had experience with or exposure to a social worker before. So on the day we have interactive workshops where you can really explore the role further. So for example, there's an activity where you'll be analysing a child protection case as a group, which actually mimics the unit model on the Frontline programme and how that would work. And at an insight event, you'll also hear from a current participant on the programme and be able to ask them any questions you may have, sorry, about their experience. And, you know, we really want to give an honest representation of that, and they'll share their honest experiences of the programme and, you know, working in social work. You'll also have the chance to meet with more experienced social work professionals who will talk about their careers and also help you to understand and reflect on diversity and difference and why that is so important in social work. And lastly, you'll also, you know, receive information and top tips from us in the recruitment team on how to succeed at each stage of the selection process for the Frontline programme. So yeah, the events are really designed to for you to find out more about a career in social work, if it's sounding appealing to you, and to really develop your knowledge and confidence to be able to apply for the programme should you choose that that's what you want to do after attending an Insight event. And so attendees are also offered one-to-one coaching with their Frontline programme application if they go on to apply, and they're open to current university students of any sort of year group as well as graduates. We're particularly encouraging applications from those who identify as belonging to an ethnic minority background or a low socioeconomic background, as at Frontline we're really we're committed and working to increase the diversity of our Frontline programme cohort so that social workers can better represent the children and families they work with. I will say that places at our Insight events are limited, so you do have to complete a short application to be selected to attend. So that the application is collecting some personal details and has 2 application questions where we're looking at your motivation for a career in social work and your commitment to learning at an Insight event. So the application deadline is coming up next month, so it's Tuesday the 10th of May. So do apply to an Insight event if the Frontline programme and a career in social work is sounding like something you might want to explore a bit further. And great, I'll hand back over to Hiba to talk about our next opportunity.
Thank you, Catherine. So I'm now just going to quickly tell you about the Campus Brand Manager role, which is another opportunity that we offer to students particularly. So who are our Campus Brand Managers? Basically, they are students who are an extension of our recruitment team that me and Catherine are both on, and their role is to raise the profile of Frontline and social work as a profession in general on their university campuses. And they are very passionate and creative students. That's really important to the role, which you'll see why now. So some things that our brand managers do, they engage with societies and departments. So that might include societies that they're already part of, and departments that they're already part of and their own networks, but it also involves building relationships in a wider way on their campus, so with other key departments and other key societies as well, and to tell them about Frontline, to promote our opportunities, and to get those societies and departments to also talk about Frontline and our opportunities as well. Other things they do is they attend and support events, and they also hold their own events and stalls. So, for example, they might attend our careers fairs, their university's career fairs, but are stand at those. So those usually happen like in the autumn, in the spring, basically any of those career events where employers are present to tell students about their opportunities. But they also hold their own events. So this can be in collaboration with, again, different societies. For example, you can see a poster there of an event that one of our brilliant brand managers at Oxford put on, like a movie night with pizza and a screening of a film about social work, and then a discussion afterwards, and then also a charity bake sale that you can see the delicious looking treats from a picture of there. So essentially, it's using their own creativity to kind of think of opportunities to promote us, which can include fun events like that. And then they do other activities as well, such as posting on social media, so Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So that's kind of a little glimpse into what some things our brand managers do. They also do things like, lecture shout outs, that kind of thing. But the main thing to kind of say here is our brand managers have like targets that we give them. And we do kind of provide them with support and training. But beyond that, they use their own creativity to come up with, how they want to actually go about their role, which is something that they, tend to really enjoy. What you will get if you are a brand manager for Frontline, so the role is paid, and you can see the hourly rates in front of you there. It is flexible, so it's 44 hours, but you work those 44 hours around your own schedule, so there's no set hours. There's sometimes, as I said, events that we would like you to attend, like fairs. Some weeks we'll ask you to focus on specific things. But other than that, you're kind of working the hours around your own timetable and your own plans. You also get, as I said, comprehensive training, both in September before you start the role and then in January before your second term to help you carry out the role. And you also have a dedicated line manager from the recruitment team who will offer you regular supervision and support. So you'll meet with them usually once every couple of weeks, and you can brainstorm and troubleshoot with them, and they can support you with whatever you're doing. And then finally, you get work experience, during term time, which can really enhance your CV if you want to do something while you're still at uni. And in terms of what we look for, in terms of experience and knowledge, we do look for people who have knowledge of student societies and networks and who are able to kind of reach out to those societies and networks and really know their campus well in that sense. We look for people who are social media savvy as well and willing to post on social media for us. And we also look at events experience. This isn't really essential. It's good to have, but as I said, training will be provided. In terms of the characteristics that we look for, as I said, we look for creativity and we want our campus brand managers to be really solution focused. We look for people who are organized, people who are self-motivated. As I said, it's kind of something you do in your own time. So you need to be able to kind of take initiative and motivate yourself. We do look for ability to work towards set targets, and we also look for someone who's a good communicator and good at building relationships. So if you feel that any of those things are you, then you might be really good for the brand manager role. And then finally, we just look for your values and alignment. So anyone who joins Frontline in any role, we look for their alignment to our purpose. And a commitment that every child should have a safe and stable home. In terms of what we look for in terms of qualifications and stuff, we look for, again, a GCSE English at a grade C or above for English and maths, or an international equivalent. You also need to be a penultimate or final year student as of autumn 2022. So in September, when you start, this term, that's coming up in the autumn, it needs to be either your last year or your penultimate year. And then finally, we look for your right to work in the UK as well. In terms of which universities we will be still recruiting for, for this coming September. You can see them on the screen in front of you. So if you're at any of those universities that are currently on the screen, then you should be able to apply for the campus brand manager position when we open applications, which will be at the end of April. And I'll share the date with you shortly in terms of when it is. But first, I wanted to share some comments from Iris, who was our brand manager this year at Oxford. And you can see a picture of Iris there at the Oxford University Freshers' Fair. Iris was a brilliant brand manager, and she gave us a case study from which I've included some quotes there. Unfortunately, we couldn't have Iris here today, but I'm going to just read out some of the stuff she said instead. So Iris said she wanted to do something outside of my degree that was a fun and flexible opportunity, and gave me a chance to talk to lots of different people on campus. So that's why she applied for the role. And about the role, she said, you are given a lot of freedom in the campus brand manager role, so you make it work for you. You have goals and targets, but the way you get there is up to you. She said that there's a lot of support on hand in the role. And she said, I always feel like there are people behind me ready to answer any questions I may have. And the role has really developed my ability to multitask and organize myself and my weeks, all whilst doing something fun outside of my studies. So that's just, instead of hearing me talk about it, even though you did hear my voice now, just something from Iris, who has just finished the role, about why she enjoyed the role and what she got out of it. And then finally, in terms of dates and how to apply, for both the Insight events and the campus brand manager role, you can apply for both through our website by scanning the QR code on the screen in front of you. And you need to apply for Insight events, as Catherine said, by 9 a.m. on Tuesday, the 10th of May. And for the campus brand manager role, applications aren't open just yet, but they will be open on Tuesday, the 26th of April. And then they'll be open for a few weeks. But we do recruit on a rolling basis. So, we could close early, or some universities could close early. So if you are interested in it, I would recommend that you apply sooner rather than later, as soon as we open. I think maybe we'll leave that QR code up on the screen, but we can probably move on to questions now.
Yeah, so maybe if we start, well, there's one right here about the campus brand manager role. So they've asked, so is the role not for students who have already graduated in the last year?
Yeah, unfortunately it isn't. So the role is for people who are still attending university at the time, because it's very much a campus-based role. So it is doing stuff at university while you're on campus. So unfortunately it isn't for students who have already graduated.
Thank you. And then there's a question asking, can we participate just as volunteers? I think this came in when I was speaking about Insight events, but we can sort of cover all bases. But for Insight events, you do need to complete a short application to be selected for a place at an Insight event, but it very much is just, attending and taking part in an interactive event and, sort of, I guess, program or experience designed to help you learn about social work and be able to meet with, participants and social workers and learning more about applying for the program. So yeah, it's not a volunteer position as such, but I hope that sort of made sense. So it's not a paid position. It's just sort of, attending a day with us to find out more. And then in case it was around the Frontline program, so the program is, a full-time 2-year program. So we don't have sort of volunteers as that. And with our campus brand manager role, it is a paid role, which we recruit for. So we wouldn't want students to do that on a volunteer basis.
Thanks, Catherine. I've just ordered the questions by upvotes to try to, because there's quite a few questions now, to try to get to the ones that a lot of you are wanting the answers for. And I can see a question about, is Frontline able to sponsor visas for those who don't hold UK citizenship? Unfortunately, we are not. So for the Campus Brand Manager role, you do need to have the right to work in the UK already. And for the Frontline program, you do need the right to work in the UK, but you also need to have access to public funds. So depending on your visa category, if you're here on a visa, you just need to make sure that it does include that. So yeah, short answer for that is we are unable to sponsor visas for those who don't hold citizenship, unfortunately.
Yeah. And then there's a question from Sophia around what areas of careers does Frontline offer? So yeah, I guess our key opportunity is the Frontline program, where you would train to be a social worker. However, I would guess those who've done the program, you know, a lot do continue as, you know, children and family social workers, but, you know, other people may go into like other mission aligned roles, as Hiba spoke about with the fellowship information. You know, some people go on to work in policy, others, you know, might set up their own initiatives. You know, I think basically, you know, you'll come out with being a qualified social worker, and, you know, there's a lot of different routes that you could go from with that afterwards. And then, as we've spoken about, if you're a current student, there's the Campus Brand Manager role, which I guess will like build on your skills in like public speaking, marketing, networking, things like that. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that at all, Hiba, to answer that question.
In terms of the Campus Brand Manager program, no, basically just everything that I said in the previous slides. But I mean, if you do have any specific questions, feel free to put another question in the chat if you want some more specific information, so I don't just like say irrelevant things. Feel free to ask again. The next question is about the Summer Institute, which is, as Catherine said, kind of the first part of the Frontline program. And the question is this in person or online? And just thinking about how this could prevent parents or carers if it's in person. So I'm not sure, Catherine, if you have any more up-to-date information than me on this, but we have previously, pre-COVID, we've always held it in person. So that was always the way that it was, which did provide, I guess, a lot of like networking opportunities. And we've usually held it in Warwick. During COVID, we had it virtually. And then we also had a hybrid approach as well. In terms of the Summer Institute for this next, the one that isn't this summer basically, but it will be the summer after if you apply this autumn. I'm not sure we actually have information on what that will look like at this point, partly because it's impossible to know what will be going on at the time. But I don't know, Catherine, if you have any more information.
No, I don't have information for I guess, what will be the 2023 cohort of the Frontline program if you were to apply this autumn. I guess just for context, this year, so people who will start the program this July, and that sort of recruitment period, they've already been recruited. Yeah, it's going to be a hybrid approach for the Summer Institute. So the first week will be online learning, and then the middle 3 weeks is a residential at the university, held at the University of Manchester, and then the final week is online. So yeah, we're yet to sort of exactly see what will happen with the 2023 cohort, and I guess we'll make reviews and adjustments when that comes closer. I guess with the sort of next part of the question around, people who are parents or carers. When we've had, residential in-person summer institutes in the past, there have been opportunities to get a room or, accommodation that accommodates for a family. So when it was held at the University of Warwick, some people might, do that and be able to bring their children with them. And I think there was a nursery on site as well that people might use. I don't know if you had any more information about that, Hiba. But yeah, there's definitely more information we can give, and we'll work with you to see what can, be done to help, to support you to be able to apply and attend the Summer Institute for the programme.
I can see a question about, is this opportunity also open to international students who plan to get a 2-year post-year work visa? I'm not sure when that question was asked, specifically what opportunity it's referring to. So I'll answer for both. For the Frontline program, you just need to make sure that whatever visa category you're on does have access to public funds, because that's how the program is funded. For the brand manager opportunity, as long as you have the right to work in the UK, then that's fine. You can apply to it.
Okay, and there's a question around, is the role open to current postgraduate students? Looking at the time, I think it looks like it might be about the campus brand manager role.
Yeah, that makes sense. For this year, the campus brand manager role is for undergraduate students only. It is something that we will, consider maybe in future years, because it is a question that we've had, and we've had some interest from postgraduate students, which is great. But for this year, we are only opening it to final and penultimate year undergraduate students, I'm afraid.
And another question around, are there any volunteering positions without committing to 2 years to the 2-year training program, the Frontline program? We don't have any volunteer positions. I guess, if you're a current student and want to build some experience, you could apply for the campus brand manager role. We did also have some internships available, though they were paid internships, but we have stopped recruiting for those now. I guess if you are perhaps interested in the Frontline program and want a bit more, I guess want to, sort of get a bit of experience with working with children potentially, then, I definitely encourage you to go ahead and, look to see if you could source that kind of sort of volunteer experience, although it's definitely not a requirement to be able to apply for the program. And then, as I said, you could apply to attend one of our Insight Days to sort of find out a bit more about it. But we don't have any specific volunteering positions at Frontline.
The next question is asking about the video interview stage of the selection process for the Frontline program, and is asking, are the questions in the video interview timed? Yes, they are. They are timed. You get a little timer in front of you on the screen that tells you how much time you've got left, like a little countdown. I couldn't tell you how much time you get. I think that varies for the question being asked, but it would be approximately the time you would take to answer like an interview question in a face-to-face interview, which I wouldn't say like approximately a minute, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less, depending on the question.
Yep. And then someone's asked if we'll be able to access this PowerPoint afterwards. So I believe that this recorded webinar will be available after we've finished. So it should be available on the website where you found us to sign up for this.
And then we've got a question about the Frontline program, and if it's open to graduates who've taken a few years to do something else before applying. Absolutely, it is open to everybody. It doesn't matter how long it's been since you graduated. So you can apply to it as a final year. You can do it after 10 years of working in another industry. It doesn't matter at all. We don't look at experience. We only look at competencies. So no matter where you are in your career, you can apply, basically. I think we have a few more.
Yeah, there's another question around video interviews. So do you only have one chance to record the videos? So yes. So when you first start the video interview, there'll be like a practice question to get used to, you know, the format of it. But basically, yeah, a question will start. There'll be a timer to think about your response. And then once that timer's up, it will start recording you for the set amount of time to record your answer. And you do just get that one go. So it's good to have a practice before of, you know, answering some competency-based interview questions, maybe even having a go like recording yourself to sort of get used to that format.
There is another question from Andrea. I don't know again specifically what you're asking about, if you're asking about the Frontline program or the campus brand manager position. Apologies. But again, it all depends just on whether you have the right to work in the UK. So for the campus brand manager position, you just need to have the right to work in the UK. So if you have that, then you're all good. And for the Frontline program, you need the right to work in the UK and to study in the UK and access to public funds. So I don't know about like the specific status that you've got, but if you can just check those things, that will kind of answer the question depending on which opportunity you're interested in.
Great. And then I think there's one final question which asks or says, I have already graduated and have some experience. So what are the job options for me in this program? Thank you. So yeah, as we've spoken about, the Frontline program, is available. You'd be able to apply for that if you meet our eligibility. And as Hib has said, you know, it's competency based, so you can use a range of experience to demonstrate the competencies that we're looking for the Frontline program. And that would, through that program, you'd qualify to become a social worker, and we really focus on children and families social work. So that's sort of the key, opportunity for graduates that we're talking about today. I guess, you know, what we haven't spoken today is about more like frontline, like office type roles. So potentially you might want to also check out our website if there's any other sort of vacancies available, if you're interested in more of a kind of office-based, like head office role. But yeah, we haven't got information on that today. And are there any other questions?
I can't see any more. We might have done them all, which is great because I think we're coming to the end. I think we only have a minute or two left anyway. So we can just wrap up now if no one else has any burning last questions. But yeah, thank you so much for attending today and for your interest in our opportunities. Feel free to contact the team if you have any questions on any specific things that we haven't talked about. Check out our website, scan that QR code, save that page. That's where you can apply to all of our student and graduate opportunities. I don't know, Catherine, if you had any final words as well?
Just thanks so much for joining us today. It's really great to see so many of you here with us and asking lots of questions. If for whatever reason you're not able to scan the QR code, our website is thefrontline.org.uk, so you'll find us there. And yeah, just thanks for joining. Hope you found that useful to hear about us today.